All right, Chris. So Ohio State has let their yearly release to the media out about the coaches' salaries for 2023.
Mhm.
Every year we play this same game, worth it, not worth it. And we understand that, listen, there's an argument that could be said for worth it or not worth it for any guy. You could look at someone's salary and say, no coach deserves this much money, right? We understand that.
Right.
But we're going to play this game with the understanding of, in comparison to other programs, college football in general, college coaches in general. Fair enough?
Sounds good.
All right, Chris, here we go. Let's start with the newest coach, tight ends coach Keenan Bailey. He has been signed to a 2-year term. He was making $150,000 last year as kind of a GA advisory role, and he has
Mhm.
been bumped up to $400,000. I know it's hard to say worth it or not worth it since he is a brand new coach, but first year coach, tight end, 400,000. Go ahead and give me your best guess. Worth it or not worth it?
I'll tell you what, Eric, I'm going to say worth it. And this is why. If you listen to the guys talk about him, specifically Cade Stover, Cade credits him a lot with the improvements that he's made at that position. So, until he gives me a reason to doubt him, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt based on what I hear coming out of, uh, you know, the camp there that he is, a major player as far as the development of the tight ends go.
Fair enough. How about quarterbacks coach Corey Dennis? He's in the last year of his contract. He made 400,000 last year. They gave him basically a cost of living pay raise. If you take, I think it's 2%
Mhm.
into that, it becomes 412,000 for this year. So about 12,000 a year. Who wouldn't like that? A nice little bonus check of 12,000.
Sure.
Worth it or not worth it?
Well, yeah, I find Corey Dennis a tough one to judge, only because I think that Ryan Day plays such a hand in the quarterbacks. But I will say this as well: the last couple guys that have come out of there have been all right. Um, it seems like he's doing having more engagement in the recruiting process. Um, and like I said, it's hard to argue with the success that we've seen out of C.J. Stroud. So, like you said, in comparison to other coaches, 412,000. I don't think that's too much to pay for this guy. I'd say he's worth it.
Okay. I agree. I agree with you on the first two, by the way. Let's go ahead and look at special teams coordinator Parker Fleming. He has a 2-year deal still remaining, it looks like. He went from 400,000 to 500,000, half a million for the special teams coordinator, Chris.
That's
Worth
a
it
little
or not worth it?
that's a little much for me for the special teams guy, especially when, let's face it, we are a team that we don't punt a lot, we don't kick a lot. Now that being said, we've had great success in both of those areas when we do have to do it. But $500,000 for a special teams coordinator when you're only giving the guy that helped develop C.J. Stroud 400,000, that seems a little excessive to me. I'm gonna have to go not worth 500,000.
I'm with you. I don't. I if I was Ohio State, if I was Ryan Day, I think Ryan Day can coach the special teams.
I agree.
And here's my little prediction. I think that money that's currently going to Parker Fleming is probably going to end up in the pocket of one James
James
Laurinaitis down the road.
Laurinaitis, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to running backs coach Tony Alford. He's got 1 year left on his deal. He's going from 750,000, so three quarter of a million. Again, just a raise with the cost of living now. 772,500 for running backs coach Tony Alford. Worth it? Not worth it.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm kind of borderline on this one, Eric. In the past, we've seen running backs under Alford have great success. 2 years ago, our running game struggled a little bit. Last year, we saw, I think, a resurgence in the running game somewhat, but that running back room was so banged up that I think it's kind of hard to judge him. So I'm going to go with this. Based on his past success, and given the fact that it is just a basically, as you said, a cost of living increase, I'm going to reluctantly say worth it, but I'm going to have to see what we do this year fully healthy before I can go 100% all in.
Every time I get upset and say he's not worth it, he ends up having an amazing recruiting class.
Yeah,
Or we have a running back who has an amazing year.
yeah,
And then I'm right back to patting him on the back, and then it seems like the next year or two we struggle.
yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like in order for me to justify him being $772,000, you're gonna have to show me more consistency. So I'm gonna go not worth it.
Okay, fair enough.
Not worth it for Tony Alford. Let's go to the offensive line coach. He's got 1 year remaining on his deal, that being Justin Fry. He goes from 800,000 to $1 million in 1 year. Worth it or not worth it on Justin Fry?
You know what? How dirty did CJ Stroud get last year?
Not very.
Did our running game improve last year?
Mm, eh,
Get get
mm,
Given what we had with injuries, do you not think the running game showed signs of improvement last year?
at times. We
Um,
we had great running. We had
I
great games at the running back position from our walk-ons at times
yeah,
late in games, but
and I look at this as I think that we saw a little bit more of that physicality that we wanted to see at times. Um, I I have a trouble justifying a $200,000 jump given what we've seen so far, but I also think that we're on the right path with this guy. I think a lot will be told by the end of this season when we see what happens when he doesn't have, you know, Paris Johnson and Dewan and some of these other guys out there that have been there, Luke Whippler.
mhm.
These guys were experienced guys, and I think he's gonna have to earn that money this year. I just don't know if I can justify the 200,000 jump. I could maybe see 100,000 because we did see signs of improvement. Eric, I'm going to reluctantly say, yeah, he's worth it.
I'm gonna say at this moment, no, but I also want to put an asterisk by that and say I could change my mind at the end of the season. If
Yeah,
with three brand new starting offensive linemen, if we end up having a really good year on the offensive line, then I'm gonna say, yeah, he's worth it. But I'm gonna circle this one and say, give me 9 months, give me 10 months before I make my
and I
determination.
would also say I mean, I think we did okay with recruiting, but I really want to see a little bit more out of him as far as recruiting some top tier talent as well.
Right. Well, and offensive line is one of those things where you don't necessarily have to get top tier talent. It's about
No,
development.
no,
I
and I
mean,
think we got some quality guys that we can develop.
look at Iowa, Wisconsin. Those guys never get top tier offensive linemen, but they develop the heck out of them. So it's just one of those things
Well,
where
it's easy when all
that
you do is run the ball.
well, but that's a position where I think development means a little bit more than recruiting numbers.
I agree.
In all honesty.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to. Oh, let's see. I'm missing. Where's Perry Eliano? There he is.
There.
I skipped over Perry Eliano. My
Yep.
my fault. Safeties coach Perry Eliano. He gets a cost of living bump. That's it. He's got 1 year left on his deal. He goes from 500,000 to 515,000. Worth it? Not worth it.
he's the defensive backs in general are so tough to justify. Yeah, I can't justify our defensive backs getting anything this year, whether it's the safety or Tim Walton. I don't know that I can justify any kind of an increase in pay given what we saw last year. I'm gonna say not worth it right now, Eric.
Okay. I I've heard a lot of people out there, I think it might even be you, Chris, that think he's not coaching the right position. He should be at the
It's
cornerbacks
corner,
position.
yes, I agree with that.
Um, so let's see how it goes. Let's see what happens here. So I'm gonna again say probably at this moment not worth it, but I'm gonna hold my final judgment until the very end of next season and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Speaking of defensive backs coaches, you brought him up, Tim Walton. Someone explained this to me, like, whew, he goes from 700,000. Are you ready for this?
Oh yeah.
To an extension of one more year, so two more. So it means he has 2 years left on his contract, and $1 million.
I
Something was going behind the scenes here, man.
I can't justify this, Eric. I really can't. Um, unless you're saying that Denzel Burke and Cam Brown's injuries were so prolific that had they been 100%, we would have had that much of an improvement. I mean, I just don't get either that or he's got his hands on some serious recruits that we, just or maybe he's working with recruiting a couple of guys who are just so big name that we don't understand. I don't know, but I cannot justify, like I said, given the performance of our defensive backs last year, for either of these guys to get a raise. I can't. I gotta say, not worth it. Not worth $1 million. No.
I can only think that this happened for two reasons. Number one, he received phone calls from the NFL, which we discussed last year as of a
Yes.
possibility that he might receive phone calls. Actually, it was a couple months ago when we started the offseason. The other reason I could see this, Ryan Day thinking that he wants this, is we have not had consistent defensive back coaching.
Correct.
And he knows that this is a need, and keeping this guy, locking him in for at least 2 more years is going to solidify that all of this young talent that we have in our defensive backfield is at least going to get consistent coaching moving forward. That's the only, but did he have to, did they have to
But
break the bank for to do that? I don't
but
know.
could we have not had consistency to some extent by just keeping moving Perry Eliano up there
I
at
don't know.
half the salary?
I don't know. Well, and do we have to have two different defensive
Exactly.
back coaches?
Exactly.
Now, Jim Knowles might argue we do because it's a safety-driven defense. We hear it at nauseum, right? So he obviously wants two different defensive back coaches, or we wouldn't have them. But at some point, does he go back there and spend more time there with one coach when James Laurinaitis is ready?
And I can see that definitely being a factor.
Okay. All right. That brings us to the big boys here. And let's talk about Larry Legend.
Worth it.
Larry,
Doesn't matter. Go ahead.
what?
I said worth it. Doesn't matter. Worth it.
La- Larry Johnson is going from a million 100 and I believe 13,000 to $1,116,990. It's just a little bit of extra scratch there, but here's the thing: this is the last year of his deal. Is this the
I,
last year? We both agree he's worth
I
it. Is this the last year for Larry Johnson?
I would not be surprised, especially if, we've discussed this before, Eric, especially if there might be some tension per se. Um, if there's some tension with him and um,
Jim Knowles.
Jim Knowles, I could definitely see this being his last season. I could see him hanging it up. I don't see him leaving and going to another team. If Larry Johnson walks away, I think it is retirement. Um, he is not a young man.
No.
He's accomplished all that one can hope to accomplish as a defensive line coach. Um, I don't think he wants the responsibility or the headaches of trying to be a coordinator at this point in his career. And he's very successful in his one head coaching stint. So you know, I think that this is probably Larry Johnson's last season. Um, but who knows? I mean, but without a doubt, he's worth it. I mean, you look at the recruiting alone, and then you add that to the performance that he has gotten through the years and the guys he's developed through the years. Without a doubt, this guy's worth. You know, he probably instead of giving a $200,000 or $300,000 bump to guys like Walton or Justin Fry, they probably could have given a little more love to Larry Johnson, to be honest.
Hmm. He ain't hurting though.
He's not hurting.
I think he's
You know,
fine. How about the big one? Brian Stinking Heartline. Gosh, we okay. When we're all said and done, I'm going to come back to this before we finish because I have a Buckeye theory. He goes from $950,000, which was a huge bump last year, to $1.6 million, and then here's the kicker: he got a 3-year extension. He ain't going nowhere. This
I've
was
got a little theory on the 3-year extension too, by the way.
oh well, let's start here. He's definitely worth it.
Oh, without a doubt, he is worth it. Um, I don't think there's any question about that. You look at the guy from a recruiting standpoint. You look at the performance that he's had, and I was going through some of his recruiting numbers earlier, Eric. Just the classes that have come in since 2019 when he took over the wide receiver room. And do you realize that he has not picked up a receiver ranked lower than 19th in the country at the receiver
Oh
position?
my gosh, that's sick.
This season, he has four receivers coming in. Three of them are in the top nine, and the other one is ranked 18th, I believe. It's insane. And you look, and I went back to last year's or the year before last. That was the one that got me. I know it was last year. The Emeka Egbuka class, where you had
It's 2 years ago,
2 years
2022.
ago. Yes, you had Egbuka come in number one, right?
2021. Yep.
You had Harrison Jr. come in ranked 17th at wide receiver.
Yeah.
What the heck? What was that? I mean, come on. This guy is, I believe, going to be more prolific than we saw out of
Was
anybody. That
was
includes
Jaden Ballard actually ranked higher than
no,
Harrison Jr.?
no. Ballard was 17. It was 16 was Harrison Jr. 17 was Ballard. I'm sorry.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, but I don't get where these guys between 2 and 16 were. Who were these guys? Who were these 15 or 14 guys that were so much better than Marvin Harrison Jr.? Because I'm not seeing it anywhere in the country.
No.
But that's getting off task here a little bit. But no, yeah, Heartline is definitely worth it. And yeah, my little theory on this 3-year extension,
Yeah, give it to me.
I feel this is a learning period
Mhm.
in the event that
You're
Ryan Day decides to
you
go
stole my
to the
theory.
NFL.
Yeah. No, I think this is exactly what this is. This is Gene hedging his bets
Yes.
that if Ryan Day leaves, he has Brian Hartline already here.
And he has
Doesn't mean
to because he lost Fickle.
okay, you're hitting it because he can't call down to Cincinnati and get Luke Fickle. Luke
Yeah.
Fickle's wrapped up. And I don't see Luke Fickle. Let's just say the unthinkable happens and one of two scenarios happens. Either Ryan Day goes to the NFL or Ryan Day loses to Michigan for a third straight year
Yeah.
and he gets fired.
Yeah.
I don't think Luke Fickell leaves Wisconsin after 1 year. I just
No,
don't.
I don't either.
I don't think he's that kind of guy.
And I don't know that Hartline's ready to make that jump after one season as a coordinator. But I'll tell you what, I think you're right. I don't think that Gene Smith can take the chance.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. The only way I don't even want to go here. Oh, I can't believe I'm about to say this. People are going to be mad at me. The only way, the only other option I think Gene would have is to call Urban back up to bridge the gap for a year or two.
and you know what? I could see it. I could see it.
That's an
And I could see them
interesting
just,
thought.
yeah, yeah. And say what you will, though. When he was here, he was a winner.
This is an entire video all on its own. We need to redo this
It is.
one. Okay, the crazy theories. Here we go. We got one more, man, and that is defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. He goes from 1.9 to 1.9 and a half. He's got 2 years left on his 3-year deal that he signed. I think it's not really a bump in pay for any reason. It was
No.
already written in the contract. So he's going to be a $2 million. And if they go back to the college football playoffs, by the way, all these guys get like a 25% raise or bump.
But if they win the national title, they get nothing.
They got to
What
get there
what
though.
what? Well, I know they got to get there, but
What's the
what?
incentive?
No, well, let's think about that. What is it? It's like a participation bonus. It literally, we're giving out participation bonuses now.
Come on,
You
Chris.
don't
That's,
you
that's a
don't have
great
to win the
line.
national title. Just get there. That's good enough for us.
We didn't even have to win the Big Ten, and they got that bonus.
Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
Knowles,
He's worth it though, right? At
I
this moment.
I think at this moment he is, and I think we're going to see how much this season. You've said it. I've reiterated it. If this team makes a national title run, it's because the defense is lights out this year. And I believe it will be. I truly believe this is going to be a top five defense this season. There's just too much in play that I think says this to me. I think Knowles, you look at his numbers historically, he's in that second year now, Eric. He's going to have
Mm-hmm.
that. He's going to have that whole playbook installed.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the addition of Laurinaitis coming in to work with the linebackers. We're going to free up Jim Knowles a little bit more to focus on the defense as a whole. I just think that, like you said, Larry Johnson, is this his last year? If it is, them boys are going to be pumped up to send him out the right way. I think there's just everything is line. The stars are lining up perfect for this defense this year. I don't see any way it's not a top five defense as long as we get any kind of production on the back end.
He is not on the 11 that you will, but he is considered a graduate assistant somehow. Oh boy, James Laurinaitis. We gotta throw him in here. $142,000.
That's pocket scratch for a 9-year NFL guy, isn't it?
Does anybody want to argue how in the world this would not be worth it?
Yeah, I mean, please, somebody make a legitimate argument here. It doesn't exist. It really doesn't. Um, you know what? I would gladly trade the special teams coach and Tim Walton if we could, you know, take an Ink Laurinaitis to a long term deal of some sorts. Yeah, just 152,000. That's worth it every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer. And I don't think you have to worry about him going anywhere else, Chris.
Now
He's a Buckeye. I mean, he
he is Brian
prob
Hartline of the defense.
he
I believe.
probably had a better situation for himself in South Bend.
Oh, they weren't going to have
And
the expectation.
I know Ohio State fans don't want to hear that, but he could have climbed the coaching ladder
Yes.
quicker there than he's going to here. He probably would have been in the full-time 11 staff this year there, okay? Already. He would have been the linebackers coach already.
Yep.
Not a GA. And he probably would have been on the fast track to be their next defensive coordinator within the next 2 to 3 years.
But let me pose this to you as well, Eric. You've got Larry Johnson checking out most likely after this season. Knowles only has 2 years left on his deal. Do you think maybe this is the beginning of that stepping process for Laurinaitis here? I
That's awful
mean, you
quick.
it's awful quick, but I mean, if you look at the rest of the defensive coaching staff, should Knowles go to greener pastures, in his opinion? Should it be a head coaching job somewhere? Should it be, a new challenge he wants to try? Or
He's
if
not
he,
gonna he's not gonna no, he's in the latter years of his career already. He basically said when
right,
he came to Ohio State that this was the apex of his career here. If I think if he's not here in 2 years, it's because he failed.
yeah.
It's
And
because
I,
we
I didn't
failed.
want to go down that. I didn't want
Or
to go down that road, but
or it's because Ryan Day's no longer here and we have a brand new head coach with a brand new coaching staff. And if that's the case, then we've blown everything up and we're starting over as a program. And none of us want to face that right now. So if I say after the end of 2 years, if he gets an extension, it will be like a 2 year extension. And then I think with your plan, the idea being that when he steps down, which would be in 2026,
yes,
then we'll see if James Laurinaitis is ready. But he's going to have to prove himself this season and then probably next year as the linebackers coach.
yeah.
I don't know of a more sure bet right now. Like if you could go and put money down on this, go do
Yep.
it. That he will be one of the 11 next year and will be a full-time line position coach next year. It'll happen one way or
So,
another.
so who do you see checking out? Is it going to be one of the defensive back coaches, or is it going to be uh, Parker Fleming? If you're giving Laurinaitis that money, who do you see checking out?
Well, let's see. I think Fleming's got 2 years left, if I understood right.
Fleming
Yeah.
has 2 years, and Tim Walton has 2 years.
Hmm.
Alford only has one.
Well, if the
Not Alford. I'm
defense
sorry, Eliano.
if the defensive backs don't improve, Eliano's the one that's going to go. Unfortunately, even though I would say the consensus is that he's the better college coach right now than Tim Walton is, but also here's something else for you to think about. Tim Walton's a former Buckeye.
Former Buckeye. Yeah,
Eliano's not.
and I feel like we are trending in a direction at this point, and I believe that this trending in the direction also. I mean, don't get me wrong. Brian Hartline, no doubt about it. Great. I think he's a great coach, great recruiter. Um, but as we're adding these other guys on that are former Buckeyes, do we think that has anything to do with the success or lack of success that we've had in the rivalry recently?
Yeah, I do. I
We're trying to get that culture back.
y- y- and here's the thing, and this is again, this is a whole nother show. We're gonna find out this year if Ryan Day really understands what the rivalry is all about.
Oh, he's going to find out one way or the other, I believe, Eric.
Um,
Whether he's cashing checks from Ohio State next year, he's going to find out.
there's a lot of people calling Ryan Day John Cooper 2.0. A
Yeah.
lot of people. But
And
you go back and you ask any player who was recruited by John Cooper and played for John Cooper,
mhm,
like our buddy Mike Wargo,
Mike, yeah.
they will go to the wall for that man.
Yeah. Well, and I've
I
said
don't
it on this
I
show
don't think
myself, Eric.
Ryan Day is any different right now. His players love him. He's just got to win the big one this
Yeah.
year. He's got to do it.
And I've said
This
it
team,
before.
I kid you not, Chris,
Yeah.
this team could go 6-5 if they beat the team up north and go 7-5. He's going to be all right.
Let me tell you, if this team goes 6-5, I may not live to see it.
Well,
It may
but
kill me.
but what I'm saying is he's got to win that game.
Yeah,
He can be mediocre the rest of the season, be like, what happened? But he has to win that game this year. There's no doubt about it. And
yeah,
again, we're off a topic, and we could do this all night. But hey, overall, this coaching staff, did you know this is the highest paid coaching staff minus the head coach in college football 2 years in a row?
yeah, yeah. Now it's time to prove it.
There we
But
go.
this is the other thing, and I was reading a little
Overall,
bit about this, Eric.
okay,
Do
and
you
then I got one
realize that
question.
many of these coaches, assistant coaches, are making significantly more than Jim Tressel did
Yeah.
when he was hired to be the head coach
Yep.
at Ohio State?
750?
750,000, I think it was, he was hired on at.
Oh,
So
yeah.
basically, with the exception of Perry Eliano, Parker
Corey
Fleming,
Dennis, Parker
Corey
Fleming,
Dennis, and the tight ends coach,
Keenan. Yeah.
yeah, the other guys are all making more than what Tress did as the head coach.
That's crazy. That is crazy. All right. Sum it up. Overall, coaching staff overall, worth it or not worth it?
On the strength of the coordinators and Larry Johnson, I'm going to say worth it. But as I said before, we got to see it. We got to see
Ready?
it.
You ready for me to burst that bubble?
Go for it.
Take Brian Hartline out of there.
Not worth it.
That's why. There you go. His value to this coaching staff is incredible.
Yeah.
It's really something. It's really something. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Please hit the like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for all of those of you who have done that already. We are growing by leaps and bounds on this channel. We appreciate all of you taking the time to watch that. If you watched it all the way to this point, over 30 minutes already, thank you so much. You must really love Buckeyes, man. And so we appreciate that. So go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share it on your social media sites. We really appreciate it. Go Bucks.